All right, so we want to actually bring the group a little bit of awareness. This one's a little bit more serious than building your business. This is actually giving back to the community, and you really need to hear this message. So, in front of me right now, I have Lolita Allen. She is a current RN, BSN, and CCMR. She has 15 years experience working in healthcare insurance, authorizing private duty nursing claims for adults and children with disabilities. Now, today she's going to be bringing about awareness on how school districts may be abusing their power and position, specifically keeping children from getting medically necessary services, and how they've been putting special needs children who have feeding tubes in nursing homes unlawfully. She has her own story to tell, and right now I'm going to give the floor over to Lolita.
Okay.
Just make sure you're unmuted.
I'm unmuted.
Okay, good.
I am. Can you hear me?
Thanks for joining our group, and I want everyone to hear your story and bring awareness to this. And at the end, I want to talk to you, maybe a little Q&A, and figure out how people can help on your mission.
Okay. Thank you all for allowing me this opportunity to tell you my story. I've been sitting in on this summit, and it just has been absolutely wonderful. I've learned a lot on this summit, and I'm so glad to be here. So I wanted to tell you, as Mike said, about my story and bring awareness to how the school district are in a position to abuse their position and to keep children from getting the medically necessary services, and also how they can work to put children into nursing homes illegally, specifically children with tube feedings. And the reason I'm focusing on tube feedings is because that is how my daughter was taken away because of her issue with her tube feeding. So I want to start off by just telling you a little bit about my background growing up and why I'm so passionate about this particular subject. I was raised by a single mother on a very low income, and I was raised in the inner city. I was raised in Philadelphia. And of course, that's a city that was and still is filled with drugs and violence and crime. Growing up, there were good times and there were not so good times. I remember the good times of all the children getting together, playing together in the street, playing jacks, playing jump rope, looking out for one another. The neighbors looked out for one another. But I also remember the not so good times, particularly with the gang violences and the drugs and all the crime that was going on in the city. But nevertheless, as a young child, I had aspired to be different for myself and to have different for my children, because I knew that there was something different on the other end of this lifestyle that I was born into. So I vowed to be different, and I vowed to have a different life. So I worked very hard at gaining a different life for myself. So I recognized that at a very young age. So then I grew up. I went on, like all teenagers, just in college. I dated my childhood boyfriend, then it was time to go off to college. So I went off to Temple University, which was my playground, which was my dream to go to Temple University. I did get accepted. I went there and I obtained my bachelor's degree. My childhood boyfriend, he went off to another state to work on his dreams and his aspirations. And after being separated for some number of years, fate had it that we ended up back together, connected together. I was working as a nurse. He had a good job with the state. And in 1989, we went off and we got married. So from that marriage, we later had two beautiful, smart, young girls. So, life was good. So that different life that I was aspiring to have had finally began to come true. I was experiencing the joys of being a mother and a wife and raising my children in the suburbs of New Jersey, not in the inner city with the high gun violence and the crimes. And most of all, I was raising my children with a very strong religious Christian foundation. So again, life was going good. So as I said, our children were raised in a loving home with two parents, which was something I didn't get to see too often. I think growing up, I may have only known of two of my friends that came from a home with two parents in the home. And I saw that was one of the reasons I knew that I wanted something different out of life, because I got to see how when you have two parents working together, you know, how their children and how they can experience some of the finer things in life. And I wanted that for myself. So I was able to do that and bring that to my children and my family. And again, our home was filled with laughter and happiness. We didn't, and my ex-husband, my husband was a regular comedian. I often say he was a Eddie Murphy or a Kevin Hart that missed his call, because he was just naturally funny. So there was always laughter in our home. And we provided our children with all their needs, the joys of parents, watching them take their first step, seeing them off to kindergarten, looking forward to the homework and the class trips and the PTAs, the sporting events. Oh, and we can't forget the birthday parties. The birthday parties, especially the Sweet 16 parties, since I had young girls. There I was supporting my husband of 17 years, and there he was supporting me, his wife. Wasn't a perfect life, but it was a good life, and we were living the American dream. So, however, but life can often take a turn in the opposite direction. So before I knew it, I found myself going down the path of divorce. This was very devastating. This was the man that I had known since I was 13 years old. Just, you think that you're going to be married for the rest of your life, just completely devastated. So I did everything that I could to keep my marriage together, but with no avail, it ended up in a divorce. So, you have the fears of raising your children on your own, the fears of the financial struggles of now being in a one income household. And you had the fears of losing, even possibly losing your home. So those things were weighing very heavily on me while I was raising my two teenage girls. But my biggest fear, the biggest fear of all, was that there would be a teenage pregnancy due to the fear of a young girl looking for love in all the wrong places due to the absence of a father in the home. I mean, the father could be there for them, come by, but it's not the same as when you have a father in the home. So this, I said, this couldn't happen to me because, my girls, they were smart. They were raised with good morals and a good Christian foundation. So I kept telling myself this couldn't happen to me. But I was wrong. My oldest daughter got herself pregnant. Initially, I was hurt and angry. I was filled with the fear of how I am now going to take care of myself, my two children, and now a new grandbaby. But with all my faith, I was still afraid. So I had to pray more than ever, trust God more than ever, and just look for the blessing in the child. So now, once I switched my mindset, now I became excited knowing that, wow, I'm going to be a grandmother. So then life is still good. So now it's 2005, and my daughter went into labor, and I rushed her to the hospital after working 8 hours at work. And after long hours of labor, the baby went into fetal distress, and my daughter had to be rushed to the OR for an emergency C-section. So finally, after the C-section, we had a new baby girl that had just entered the world. I was the first one to hold her. I was so excited. So we find out early on that Jayla, which is her name, Jenna I called her because I preferred Jenna over Jayla. So we find out early that she would probably have some developmental delays and that the doctors would have to keep an eye on her and watch her development. And she did have some complications after the birth, and she had to remain in the hospital for about a week or so. So finally, Jayla comes home. She comes home in about, I'd say about 2 weeks after she comes home. Her mother, who is still the rebellious teenager that she is, left home with Jayla. So of course I'm worried, praying, just making sure, she takes good care of the baby and herself. But about 3 months later, Jayla's about 3 months old, I received a call stating that Jayla was in the hospital and she would be undergoing surgery. I didn't know anything else, what type of surgery or anything initially. So I rushed to the hospital. So she had fluid on the brain and would need to have drains placed in her head to drain the fluid from her brain. At that point, the Department of Children and Protective Services and Permanency had came in, falsely accused my daughter and the father, these two young parents, of child abuse. And that division illegally took Jayla from her parents. So now life has just turned completely upside down. Your worst fear. Now your first and only grandchild is in a hospital, and the Department of Children and Family has taken custody of her. So Jayla was very sick, and she went from hospital to hospital to rehabs to finally a long-term care facility where the division had placed her there to spend the rest of her little life there, never to come home again to her parents. So there was me, the loving mother, the grandmother, the nurse, the advocate, rolled up my sleeves, and I began fighting for the rights of my Jayla. So it was a long, hard fight. After about 3.5 years of some very lengthy and painful court battles with the Division of Child and Protective Services, in November of 2008, I finally adopted Jayla. So this was one of the happiest days of my life. I was fully aware of the many challenges that I would be facing raising a special needs child. Nevertheless, I felt very comfortable that I was able to handle the challenges as a mother, as a nurse case manager of 15 years of experience working in the healthcare industry and also working as a pediatric nurse. So, Jayla came home. She had all her needs were being met. She had all the services that she needed. She was getting nursing services at home. There I was working from home, taking care of her almost 24 hours a day, because you just never take your mind off of your child. And even though you have nurses there, you're the expert on your child. So you're always involved with your child. So Jayla was getting the therapies that she needed and nursing service that she needed. She was in a loving home. She had everything that she needed. So now she's ready to go to school. She's being fed by a tube. She's wheelchair bound. She's nonverbal. And she requires complete care. She needs you to bathe and do everything for her. Nevertheless, my baby girl was always happy. She was happy almost 90% of the day, all the time. She rarely ever complained. She was very strong. If something was wrong with her, she would just suck it up and keep it moving. She was getting, again, she was getting the private duty nursing services that she needed. She was getting therapies in school and out of school as well. And she was thriving in every area of her life. She even learned how to eat by mouth and walk in a walker and learned to speak with a communication device. And she filled our home with her beautiful smile, her infectious laugh, and her comedic spirit. So now Jayla's in the 5th grade, about the 5th grade, and her health began to fail. It began to take a turn for the worse. She slowly started having complications from her tube feeding. There was leakage around the tube feeding site. She had abdominal bloating. Her stomach was extremely bloated. She was having severe refluxing, severe painful gas and constipation. And the school began to provide very poor nursing care to her and very poor personal care to her. The school illegally dropped Jayla from the school roster, and then they mandated nursing services at school without justifying the reason for the services. And it was clear to me the reason because of the poor care that they were providing to her, the poor nursing services and the poor personal care, coming home with diaper rash multiple times and not properly caring for her tube feeding. So she became a liability to them because of their negligence, not because of her, but because of their negligence. So not only was she dropped from her roster from school, the doctors were denying her the Botox injection that she needed, and Botox is used to help relax the muscles for children with cerebral palsy, which she was eventually diagnosed with, and it also helps to prevent the pain. Aside from those things happening to her, being dropped from school, not getting the Botox injections, the insurance company began to cut her nursing services at a time that she was getting sicker and getting worse. So this went on from like 5th grade to 7th grade. So 2 years of my child suffering in pain every single day. She went from that happy child who was laughing and smiling all the time and to slipping into a state of depression right in front of your eyes. She couldn't talk, but from her nonverbal cues, she just wasn't laughing anymore. She wasn't interacting with anymore. She was keeping her head down. There were all sorts of signs of the child being in a depressed state. And anybody is experiencing pain, intense pain, will go into a state of depression, especially when there is no relief and it lasted for so long. She even began, when the pain came, she couldn't, express it. So she would begin to pull out her hair and just completely shut down. So I had been speaking and advocating and talking to the doctors and rationalizing with the doctors, but they were just not listening to me. So I just got more and more intense with my advocating for her, to the point where it was just like an outright, no longer advocating. I was just in an outright war, fighting for her rights and her needs, while I was watching my child cry for hours in a day. And my voice went completely unheard. I had showed videos to the Division of Child and Protective Services, to the doctors, of my child's agony. And again, they just completely, the more I advocated, the more they disregarded me, the more they disrespected me as a professional, and the more they just disrespected me as a mother who knows their child best. So at this point, I had to seek help, legal help at this point, because they were just not listening to me. So I thought, okay, wow, I got some legal help here. I'm going to get better results. I went to the free community health law project to get help. And the reason I did that was because my goal was to keep my child home. And when they cut the services, I had to quit my job in order to take care of her so that she would get the nursing services that she needed. So I was unable to pay a lawyer to fight for me. So I got the free legal service lawyer. He was very good. He was very compassionate, and he went into a mediation with me, with the school. And the reason we went to the school was because after the insurance company cut the services, and the school district mandated 8 hours of nursing services at home. So the school district was the tool to keep the child from getting the 16 hours of nursing that she needed at home. The 16 hours she needed at home. So the insurance company did not want to give her those 16 hours because if they gave it to her, they would have to give it to everybody else. And that equates to lots of money, which insurance companies don't want to pay the money for the services that people need. So they use the school as their tool to take away the hours at home. So the lawyer was fully aware of what my issue was and what my fight was. He went in there with intentions of presenting, the medical need for the child to have these services at home. But when he came out, he looked me in my face and he said to me, which was one of the worst things a mother could ever hear concerning your special needs child. He said, it's better to have a sick child at home than no child at all, because a school district has more power than a single parent. My heart dropped. I wanted to just break down in tears. So in other words, this was not about what my child needed medically. This was more about power and the school district's need to protect themselves from the liability that they had created. So what do I do at this point? I have to keep fighting because my child needs these services. So without a job, I did what a lot of parents do that are in my situation. We take money from our retirement plans, our 401ks, our savings, wherever we could get it from, to hire a lawyer. Because, sometimes you get what you pay for. But the lawyer that I had, he was very good, but he knew what I was up against, and he knew that what he was up against, and that there was just some illegal things going on here. So I hired a lawyer. However, I got the same negative results. That lawyer said to me, which I thought the first thing was bad and worse, this one was even worse. That lawyer said to me, if you don't stop fighting, they're going to take your child. Oh my God. So it was their goal to silence me. We're a big institution. We're a big school district. We have power. We have powerful people that we can work with. And if you don't stop, we're going to take your child. Okay. I know lots of parents because I work in the healthcare, home care arena as a case manager, as a nurse in the home. Parents just stop. They just figure out a way to watch their children suffer, do without, watch their children get the lowest level of services that they could possibly get just to keep their child at home. But me being a single parent that was working full-time and part-time and now quitting my job, trying to hold on to my home, hold on to my grandchild, sustain myself in the process, there was no way that I was just going to sit back and allow these people to do this to my child when I knew that what they were doing was wrong. I knew exactly what they were doing, why they did it, and how they did it. I just didn't have the power behind me to stop them from doing it. So I just kept fighting. I fought whatever way I knew how. So I thought to myself, I said, hey, they're not going to take my baby from me. I have enough experience in the insurance arena, which was my job to process private duty nursing claims. In fact, I was crowned Queen of Private Duty Nursing on my unit that I worked for at the insurance company because I was the best at it. So I knew how to appeal a denial and how to win that denial. And I thought to myself, all I needed was a good lawyer that could represent me against the school, that could look at what the school district was doing, how they were doing it, and argue my point for me legally. So I didn't back down. I kept fighting. And guess what? January 23rd, 2020, DCPMP, that's the Division of Child and Protective Services, they asked me, Miss Allen, what are you going to do about this circle that they're running you in? When they say they meant the school district and the doctors and the insurance company, but they also left out themselves. That was just blatant abuse of their power. They knew I was being ran in a circle. This is the Division of Child and Protective Service that's supposed to help protect your child. They knew I was being ran in a circle. Not only did they do nothing about it, they also participated in the process. So I'm starting to get, discouraged. But nevertheless, I'm still not giving up. So on January 23rd, the Division of Child and Protective Services took my child out of my home, placed her in a long-term care facility in the middle of a corona pandemic. Not to mind you that I had been writing letters and fighting for them not to put my child in a facility, one, because it's just not a place to be, especially when there was an outbreak 2 years ago in 2018 of multiple long-term care facilities, pediatric facilities, where somewhere between 11 and 13 children had died of the adenovirus in 2018. So I was fighting to not place my child's life at risk because of that. And here we are in the middle of COVID-19, and they placed my child in a long-term facility. It's a child that can't speak for themselves. They had been ignoring her symptoms and her pain and her problems when she had a voice, which was mine. And now she can't speak for herself. She has no one to advocate for her. They have revoked my visitation rights because I continue to speak out against the wrong that they're doing. Because I videoed my child on how horrible she looks in the facility when I was allowed to just see her via Zoom. So I had to come up with a way to advocate for my child. And the only way I could do that was to video what I was seeing of her through a Zoom video. And again, their goal is to silence you so that they can win, and no one is I'm never able to prove what they're doing that is wrong. So I have not seen my child, oh God, it's been about probably a month or two now. And that's tough because the last time I saw her, she looked really horrible. So that's not stopping me. So I had already decided to start my own business, and my goal was to educate parents like myself about the things that I knew about the denial and an appeal process. to help them to win their fight. But most importantly, my goal was to teach them what I didn't know about what I call the power of the 3 Ps. And those 3 Ps are a position, a policy, and a pen. And those are the 3 Ps that particularly the school district uses. The other agencies use it as well, but I focus on the school district because it went from a simple insurance denial to a fight with the school district, because the school district is their most powerful tool because children have to go to school. So they use the school district, DCPNP, which is the Child Protective Services. They can take your child for 2 reasons. 1, for abuse and neglect, or 2, for what they call a family in need of services. So what they did was they took their pen and their policies and their positions, and they created a family in need of services by denying her private duty nursing services, by dropping her out of school so she's not getting school, by not getting school, she's not getting the therapies and things that she needs, financial services by keeping the home care agencies out of the home. Therefore, I can't go to work. So now you have financial services, a need for financial services. So they created all of these need for services when in fact, all of these things were in place that I had as a nurse case manager. That's my job. Of 15 years, I was capable of providing all of those services to my child until they took them all away. But they shifted it from the insurance company to the school district, from the insurance company, negligence, and the doctor to me. So now the fight is all about me, Miss Allen. You bring Division of Child and Protective Services in, and they can say that they couldn't say abuse. They initially tried, but they couldn't find no abuse because it was just not true. But they can create the need for services. So as long as I continue to fight against the services that they want to provide for my child that are not beneficial to the child, they can continue to say that you are resisting, that you're not making sound decisions for your child, that you're, in other words, unstable, that you have psychological issues and you need to have a psychological exam. And they use all of these things to keep you from getting your child back. So it's just wrong. It's just wrong. But they're in a position to do so. Parents are aware that they're able to do that, so they sit back and they quietly just accept it. But there's a lot of things about it that parents don't know, like I didn't know how much of a role the school district played in this. So now I'm on a mission to educate the parents about the denial process and how they can win, set them up for a greater chance at winning. You can't guarantee anything 100%, but I can set you up for a higher chance at winning, as well as what I didn't know about the 3 Ps to help the parents to protect their child and also to protect themselves. Prevention is the key here. Knowledge is power. The more a parent knows, the more they educate themselves, the more power they have to protect their child. And the reason I'm doing this is because no child, especially a special need child and a child that is medically fragile, should be deliberately made to suffer at the hands of professionals who are supposed to be doing that which is in the best interest of the child. And no parent should have to endure the suffering of their innocent and defenseless children. So if you are a parent of a child that has an IEP, that has a tube feeding or special needs, I will be doing a training soon on, as I said, educating you about the powers of the three Ps and how to put yourself in a better position to win an insurance denial, and educating you on information about your IEP. I would like for you to spread the word to other parents so that they could take this training and so that they can be in a better position to protect themselves and their child. And what I would like to add to that is Amy Moshe Berry, who spoke earlier, she said something that just really resonated with me. She said, people don't don't care about how much you know until they know how much you care. So I hope that after hearing my speech, that parents out there with children that have special needs will see how much I care about their child and them. And hopefully they will sign up to take my course so that their child never ends up in the position that my child is. I thank you for your time, and I thank you for listening to me.
All right, thanks for sharing that with us. Do you have anything specific when somebody wants more information or has a family member or friend that has this situation? What's the first resource they should go besides something from you?
Right. I'm working on a resource sheet.
Okay.
But I picked out like the top 5, and I tried to pick resources that were free. And the first, out of the 5, 4 are free. The first one is SPAN. That's the Special Parent Advocacy Network. And what they do is they provide information and resources and support and advocacy to families. They also provide it to professionals and policymakers and also parents in their center of colleagues. But they do work specifically with parents with children that have special needs. The second resource I think that is a very important resource to have is, you go to school, they give you all these packages and all these papers, and you just kind of toss them aside. But the one very important resource that I would say find time in your day to go through it and read it is the Parents' Rights and Special Education Handbook. That's what it's called in New Jersey. It's probably called something different in other places, but it's your Parents' Right book. And it provides the parents with the laws of the specific state in which you are in. And it also provides the federal laws for Individuals with Disability Education Act of 2004, known as the IDEA 2004. And that's the law that ensures that children with disabilities have the opportunity to have a free, appropriate public education in the least restrictive environment. And it's also the most important part of that is that the law allows to provide parents with the right to participate in their children's education, which is why I know that they illegally, what they were doing was illegal because they really didn't allow me to participate. They took away all of my rights as a parent. And they can, if they don't already have it, they can call their local school district and request a copy. The next thing is, of course, other parents. Other parents are always a good resource because some of them have gone through some of the things that I've gone through, and they can coach you through some of those things, and they could be a good support for you. And the one thing on here that's not free is you should have a patient care advocate if you can afford it, because they work to advocate for the patient to help the patient get the outcome that they want, not only what they want, but what they need and what they deserve. And it's very important sometimes to have someone else who could speak on your behalf, and they're good at communicating with the physicians, and they're not so emotionally involved that they can think a little bit clearly and advocate on your behalf. And the last one is which is where I'm hoping that parents don't get to the point where they need to have a lawyer. And if you can't afford a lawyer, then you can go to your community health law project in the state of New Jersey, in your whatever county it is that you live in, and you can get a lawyer to represent you, because the school districts have lawyers. When you go for a mediation, you think it's just a mediation, but in actuality, it's really a dispute, and you're actually at a court level at that point, and parents don't know that. And if you, another good resource to have in terms of legal support is, I think it's called Legal Shield, or some sort of prepaid legal services,
Right.
where you can call up at any time for paying a monthly fee, and they can write letters for you. They can answer any questions that you have, and they can also review documents for you. So if you're kind of representing yourself and you don't know all the legalities of the letters that you're getting, they can review those letters for you for free, those documents for you. So that's another good resource to have. And I think for me, it costs about $16 a month, and it's a good resource to have.
Okay, would you put some of the resources either in the Main Street group? Just put it in the chat under your video, and I think that would help everybody out. And
Okay.
anything else you want to end with for the evening?
No, I think I've covered it all. I just want to encourage the parents to don't be afraid to speak up. There's power in numbers. Try to get together in a support group, and not just to vent, but to also work on developing a plan, because a plan to lobby before Congress so that we can make a change, because this is happening all over the United States. It's really, really getting worse. It's getting more attention at this point. There was an article done by the Houston Chronicles where it was called Do No Harm. And they brought to the attention of how the doctors are working with the school districts and the social workers. And when you think that they're helping you, in actuality, in the background, they're hurting you, and they're working to take your children from you.
Okay. Are you starting your own private or public Facebook group?
Yes, I do. I have a page on Facebook called "I'm More Than a Tube Feeding," and also I'm working on my website, but
Will
I
there be a
have.
private group like we have here for business owners? Is there like a support group for other parents in that situation?
Right, but it's not private, it's public.
Okay, you have a public group?
It's a public group,
Okay,
yes.
good.
And my email is me, H like Harry, Q like Queen, @gmail.com. And I'll put that in the chat.
Okay.